Why, Mr. Tagliabue, didn't you tell us about the ugly incident involving your father Vittorio in Piacenza years ago? How could you possibly think we wouldn't find out? Asked the commander of the Trezzi barracks in a firm tone. He had summoned Alberto, the victim's father, to his office. Longobucco and Vignati were also present. After the question was asked, Giacomo Tagliabue sat on a chair that, in the ensuing silence, seemed to creak with a sound like the faint mewling of a cat in heat. Before answering, the man being questioned looked into the eyes of the three law enforcement officers seated across from him, as if searching their pupils for a plausible justification for his earlier omission. As the victim's father began to speak, grasping at straws with a series of dubious excuses that seemed to make him appear even less trustworthy rather than more so, inevitably leading to a grilling, the former RIS chief found himself increasingly recalling the case of the woman who had committed suicide. After reviewing the details of that grim affair, it felt as though he were reliving those days. Meanwhile, Giacomo Tagliabue had run out of excuses and concluded by saying, "Well, what can I say? I offer my sincerest apologies. It was an ugly affair involving my father's private life, something I am certainly not proud of. I didn't think it was relevant to your investigation, and besides, it's a story my wife isn't even aware of. I preferred not to mention it." "All right, Mr. Tagliabue, I think that will do. Please make sure you remain available to the authorities should we need to call you in again. You may go." The victim's father stood up, bade farewell to those present, and left the office, escorted to the door by Longobucco, who then returned and sat in the chair the interviewee had just vacated. "So, gentlemen, the investigation is taking shape," said Trezzi. "I'd say so," confirmed Vignati. The former RIS chief spoke up. "It's clear that the motive might lie in revenge. The killer, who based on the video footage is irrefutably a man, is convinced that Vittorio Tagliabue killed Miriam and then staged it to look like a suicide. However, Vincenza, Miriam's mother, who passed away a few years after the tragedy, the poor woman had spiraled into the abyss of anorexia, had no cousins or aunts and uncles she was in contact with, as she was a migrant from the south. Furthermore, she had sole parental custody of Miriam, who took her mother's surname, because the father had abandoned her after getting her pregnant. So, the first question we have to ask ourselves is, who could the killer possibly be? At this point, if it isn't a relative, could it be a close friend of the mother, of Miriam, or perhaps of both? And a second point, why kill the grandson Alberto and not the son Giacomo, who is still alive, or perhaps the daughter-in-law? At this stage, however, Vittorio Tagliabue's other three children and their own offspring are also in danger. We need to ensure their protection. Given that the killer's motive is revenge, and considering the nature of the murder, I highly doubt his bloodthirsty desire to settle the score has been sated. And one final question plagues me. Why seek revenge after all these years? And why disguise himself as Shrek? What is the connection there? Is he insane? Possibly, but even a madman follows a certain logic in his modus operandi. While the motive might be plausible enough, we are completely in the dark when it comes to identifying suspects who could be the masked killer. After Longobucco's lengthy analysis, Vignati concluded the briefing by outlining the killer's profile. The killer, whom we have established is a man, appears to be between 50 and 60 years old. He is educated and possesses sufficient financial means to likely avoid working. He is in no rush to kill and will wait for the opportune moment to strike. Salvatore Longobucco confirmed this with a nod, without saying a word.